So, we are live. Welcome to the World of Warcraft Midnight Q&A. I'm Randy Jordan, and I go by Kyvax on the Warcraft community team. We recently asked WoW players on forums and social media sites to submit questions, and you delivered. So, we've got 3 leaders of the WoW development team here. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Ian Hussey-Kostas, Game Director on WoW.
Hi, my name is Paul Cubitt. I'm Associate Game Director on World of Warcraft, working on the Midnight expansion.
Hi, I'm Maria Hamilton. I'm the Design Director for WoW.
We got a lot of questions, and I want to get right to them. We're going to start with some housing questions. So, Cyglaive on the forums actually said, during a Gamescom interview, it was mentioned that Horde players would be able to use Alliance-style housing exteriors and vice versa. However, in a recent blog post, it was stated that the housing styles would be faction-locked. Can we get clarification on that?
Yes, there was a bit of confusion definitely around the Gamescom messaging there. As we just saw in the deep dive video, the neighborhoods ultimately are anchored in specific locations in the world. If you are in the Alliance neighborhood, you are on the outskirts of Stormwind in the Elwyn area. If you are in the Horde neighborhood, you're on the outskirts of Orgrimmar. While private neighborhoods can be cross-faction, you can have your guildmates, you can have your friends of the opposite faction move in. Okay. The general setting, the exterior houses there are going to reflect the location. The NPCs that are wandering around the neighborhood, again, are anchored in that place in the world. Maybe something that we revisit down the line, but for the time being, if you're in the Horde neighborhood, the home exteriors need to reflect the Horde.
Okay, so what he's saying is that even if you're a Horde and you're hanging out with your Alliance friends, if your private neighborhood is in Alliance, you will own an Alliance house. Is that the way I'm looking at it? Is that right? Call me out on it.
Horde aesthetic. Take that up with the Orgrimmar HOA if there's a concern.
Speaking of things wandering around, a player named Hey Hey on the EU Spanish forums asked, I know there are plans for combat pets to appear in housing. Are there also plans for hunter pets?
Yes, so pets are something in general that we're working towards. At release in Midnight, battle pets won't be available to be placed just yet. I think something that we need to solve to make that work on the engineering side is actually making sure that they can path and move comfortably around whatever configuration of objects you might happen to place in your home or in your yard. So we are planning on delivering that shortly after launch.
You know, I'm going to put all of my 300, 400 pets into that the second they allow it. Them ducks are going to be running around.
Alongside that, we do want to add the ability to place your mounts in your mount collection. If you want to, have them on a hitching post in your yard, that's something we'd love to deliver as well. Hunter pets are probably trickier. Those are character specific, and housing is an account-wide system really tied to your warband. And so,
I wonder what's going to be.
from.
I wonder the amount of mounts you can put out. I do wonder. Because I think in VOD you were only able to put out, what was it, 1? Or up to 3? I can't remember now, it's been a while, but it'd be cool if you could get a lot more that should be roaming around with the crack, because why not?
From specific characters, hunter pet stable would probably be much more challenging. I'll never say never, but that's not in the plans currently.
Alright.
Decor. Bjorky on Reddit asked, how will the trading post housing items work? Let's say there's a chair on the trading post. Will we have to buy the chair multiple times if we want a set of 4 in our house? Will there be a 10-chair bundle for a set price? Or will the purchase give us infinite amount of chairs?
This is something we spent a good amount of time thinking about. There's going to be lots of ways that you can get decor starting in 11.2.7 and then into Midnight through achievements, through crafting, through completing just the campaign of Midnight and so on.
Okay.
And we ran into a lot of the same questions that you asked, the person who asked this question. Yes. And for that reason, we're actually just not going to have them on the trading post. At least for the first few months, there should be plenty of.
I don't like how I'm seeing numbers next to it, which means you will either have to repurchase it multiple times or regain it multiple times, depending.
Other ways that you could start gathering decor for your house. And then you won't have to make that hard decision between, do I want this chair versus this cool mount or cool transmog?
Another question.
That doesn't answer anything. Like, that doesn't answer anything. That's really vague answer. Right there.
Do I want this chair versus...
So when you see, like, you have 2 of these and you have 2 of these, there's 1 of these. She already put the book down, which means there was originally 2 of these. Oh, they better not make us buy everything, like, separate for buying 4 chairs.
Is this cool mount or cool transmog?
Another question comes from Xanther on the forums. Xanther asked, how will outdoor housing plots work? If I want a certain plot and it's taken, do I have the option to try another instance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Essentially, when you want to move house, you're just going to say, yep, it's time to move. It's all going to get packaged up for you. Paul likes to say that a mage comes along and puts it into an arcane ball for you. I don't know if that's actually, you know.
That is what happens.
Oh, totally. Okay. And then you can go to wherever you'd like to sort of deploy your house, and it just comes right back out of the bubble, set up exactly how you had it. So you can move around neighborhoods, you can move around different plots within a neighborhood. Yeah, totally transportable.
Right on. Celia on the German WoW forums asked, will there be updates to the guild system in Midnight?
I think most of the updates we see to the guild system are going to be in the form of neighborhoods. We expect to see a lot of guilds, especially guilds who are like playing a lot actively with one another, to build guild neighborhoods where you'll be able to live alongside one another. So instead of the the typical ways you're interacting with one another in WoW, whether that's raid nights, Mythic Plus nights, PvP, whatever it is you choose to do, you might also just start running into one another in the morning when you go out to get the paper. And so really looking forward to seeing guilds build stronger connections.
To get your
with those
coupons.
guild neighborhoods.
That's why.
The other systemic trappings of the guild system are something that we know is definitely due for a refresh. Guilds obviously have been there since the beginning, and there's definitely room for improvement. Our focus for Midnight, though, really was on the housing integration side of it, and the rest of the system is something we hope to get back.
So it's basically saying it's on their radar, but not this expansion. For any guild updates, other than housing.
Back to in the near future.
A highly upvoted question on Reddit comes from Chilligok. Chilligok asked, will we ever get another texture update for older races, especially compared to Earthen? The hairstyles are outdated now.
We do have a couple which are coming in Midnight. As you complete the Amani campaign in Zulaman, you will be able to unlock some cool cosmetics for Darkspear trolls, some cool hairstyles, and actually skin colors as well. And so if you have any Darkspear trolls on your account, you play through the campaign, you'll be able to get some cool customizations. And this is one of the ways that we do try to approach this, is as it's appropriate to the story, we'll look for cool ways that you can integrate cosmetics into your own character. That's not the only way that we might do this, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's something that we see as an issue to chip away at over time. We want to roll out extra customizations, hairstyles, you name it, for the existing races to continue to bring them up to parity with the very newest options. It's not something we're able to do all at once, but particularly where it makes sense and fits the story, we're excited to keep adding them. Our long-term goal is to get to a place where every race, whether brand new or one of the original ones, has roughly the same number of options.
Alright.
So,
what does
as we just
expansion
saw in the
involve?
deep
Future?
dive and going back to the Gamescom announcement, we have a system coming called Prey. And I have a couple of questions here about Prey. System of Cells on Reddit asked, will the Prey system make all mobs in the target zone more challenging, or only the Prey target
Great
plus
question.
world quests unique to that system?
Yeah, it will affect everything in the zone for you. So if you have chosen to go into the zone chasing a nightmare mode prey, everything is going to be much harder for you. It's based on an aura that's put on you, sort of like it's almost like an affliction in a way, or a torment. And as
So it's like you're placed in a bubble, and everything within that bubble is going to be the difficulty it shows.
you move through that zone, it's going to be harder.
And the player in Prey is on their own?
They are when they finally wear down that boss, if it's in one of the harder modes. Then you need to go mano a mano. If it's in the normal mode, then the rest of the players in the vicinity can help you out.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, fair.
The WoW creator Fandy asked, is the Prey system planned to be a part of the World Row in Vaults?
Yeah, in one way or another. As we build our expansion, one of the last things that comes in is specifics on rewards. So we don't have the specific details now, but when we do look at Prey, we look at it as similar in difficulty and sort of player activity to the types of things that you do in Delves. And Delves do take up that bottom row of the World Row in the Great Vault as well. So we do expect, if you're running Prey, you're going to see better rewards in that row in one way or another.
That's awesome, because you can now get rewards. Well, you can get rewards from more places in general, but you'll be able to do it as a solo, so you don't have to participate in dungeons and you don't have to participate in raids to be able to gain gear and such, rewards in general. So basically that's great for somebody like me who doesn't want to do party games and do raids or anything, and I do everything by myself. So now if I just turn that on and I get a couple of rewards, I get some stuff from the Great Vault a lot easier.
Good. I want to get to one of the most highly upvoted questions we saw across all channels. This is from Weird Dandom Ally on Reddit. And that goes, any plans to rejuvenate the glyph system? All classes could take advantage of it for class visual customizations like warlocks have with their pets and druids with their forms.
Yes.
Yeah, so there isn't a glyph overhaul plan for Midnight at launch in particular, but the general question of more customization for spell visuals, transforms, things along those lines, that's one that we're also very excited about and always looking to offer more customization, more cosmetic self-expression where possible. And the glyph system is a great vehicle for this. It's not the only vehicle, but where it makes sense, it's definitely one of the avenues we would
Again,
use.
nothing in Midnight. Probably
Speaking
in the
of
future.
highly upvoted questions, we got a lot from the PvP community. I want to ask a few of those. So starting with KethCup on Reddit, the question is, do you have any plans on making PvP less daunting for new players?
We absolutely do.
What a question. What a question. When you look at a PvP as a non-PvP player, or at least wannabe PvP player, it is excruciating to even think about getting into. Like, it really is. World of Warcraft as a whole is difficult for new players. It's quite overwhelming. PvP that's a whole other universe.
Ooh, yeah, we're really excited to introduce a new feature called Training Grounds. This is a feature where players can enter battlegrounds fighting alongside other players against game-controlled opponents. So instead of fighting against other PvPers, potentially people who have been playing this mode much longer than you, who have better PvP gear than you, and are going to wipe the floor with you, you'll be able to fight against some opponents who you'll have a little bit more of a satisfying win rate against. And because of that, we think this will be a pretty good on-ramp for people who are PvP curious, who want to get into PvP, but feel like there's just too much of a steep on-ramp because of those daunting aforementioned players who want to wipe the floor with you.
This is an absolute W. This is huge, because whether you want to get into PvP, whether you are just testing the water, or whether you just want to practice your PvP, you don't have to just practice on a dummy. You can go and do these PvP combats with even your friends or your guildmates or random strangers against like NPCs, and be able to like just navigate your rotation and learn your stuff, and not have to feel like you're never going to get invited back in because you don't know what you're doing. Like, this is a huge W. I'm just wondering, is it going to have rewards, or is it literally just going to be, oh, if you want to do it, you can do it? Or are they going to push for rewarding this behavior, especially for new players? Because if there's new players and they want to try PvP, they'll do it. But are we going to have a group of 5 for a, or are we going to have a group of 10, or just duos, group of 2? What if you can't find your teammates? So we need some type of a reward system where it's going to push people to want to help others as well, if that makes sense.
This is going to start with a couple battlegrounds that players will be able to jump into with Training Grounds, and we'll see where we go from there.
I think, we love PvP, broadly speaking. I think one of the challenges is it can be very daunting to get in, as the question implies. If you're getting into PvP for the first time, you are in some cases jumping into a pool that's filled with sharks who've been doing this for 20 years. But there's so much, there's nothing quite like World of Warcraft PvP and that style of conflict, that style of combat. And so really our philosophical approach as we move into Midnight to really try to rejuvenate and grow the scene is to broaden the base of that pyramid so we can kind of lift the whole thing up and help all levels of it, whether you are the most hardcore person competing for titles at the end of every season. Everyone will be better served if people feel like they can actually enter this community for the first time and discover what is so great about WoW PvP.
Let's all be sharks.
That's a good thing.
The PvP player and creator known as Supatees had the most highly upvoted question on our forums. He wrote, "In the War Within, we saw major reward improvements and restructuring for Mythic Plus, which improved participation. Are there plans to look at the current reward structure for PvP, such as rating cutoffs or additional rewards?"
There are definitely plans to look at this. One thing I can say that will be changing at launch in Midnight, in the first season of Midnight, is that top tier cutoff coming down from 2,400 to 2,300 for those rewards and titles. I think looking at how MMR has evolved and how the rating ecosystem has played out.
I mean, I don't play PvP, but I can see how this could be satisfying, because if you're playing a top tier PvP setting, probably grinding that extra 100 is as they say, daunting. Like, it's probably a torture.
That's been a bit too exclusive, even for some of our best players. Broadly speaking, beyond that, I think there's a lot more that we would like to do with the system. That's not necessarily going to be happening right at launch in Midnight, but if you look, for example, at what we changed with Mythic Plus and new titles and new structure and things like the Resilient Keystone system in War Within, those changes came in War Within patches. So as we look to PvP and its evolution over the course of Midnight, that's definitely an area that we want to focus on.
Got another one. Sandint on the WoW forums wrote, "Will War Mode receive more well-needed attention? More activities like zone objectives?"
People still use War Mode? Is that? It's an ignorant question, I think, but I haven't used that since it came out. It's a great change. It was a W for World of Warcraft. I've never used it.
Or rotating events. Maybe a free-for-all treatment?
Yeah, we're adding a whole new area into the Voidstorm zone, a giant war mode area which reflects the same space as the Slayer's Rise battleground. If you watched the deep dive video, you got to see that. That Slayer's Rise is also made manifest in the zone itself. And this is, if you've played war mode in past expansions, you know that we've taken a couple war mode areas and had maybe one in each zone, one in Ringing Deeps and one in Isle of Dorn, where PvP, when you enable war mode, you'll have some special unique activities. We took all those and glumped them all together right into the Slayer's Rise area, and so there's going to be a huge PvP playground if you have war mode on, be able to do lots of cool
So it's just a playground for everyone just to kill each other, faction based. Alright. That's just pretty standard. I mean, I can see how that could be pretty cool.
World quest activities, reasons to just kill one another, and even if you don't have war mode enabled, there'll still be PvP themed content for folks doing world quests up in that area.
Why would you not have war mode enabled?
That's a very good question. Yeah.
Because you're afraid of sharks.
Yeah, it's sharks.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thank you. So, MacLamente26 on Reddit asked a question that we saw a lot of, which is, when can we expect reputations from expansions prior to Shadowlands to become warbound reputations?
Great question.
So yeah, taking full accountability here. I know that when we rolled out warbands, we said that we were going to work our way backwards through reputations. We haven't made progress as quickly as we would have liked. We got some of the Shadowlands reputations, but not the Covenant ones. This is something we're going to pick up and resume. I can't commit to a definite timetable, but in the long run, we don't want this, internal disparity between how different expansions reputations are handled, and we'll continue to start with the most recent and work our way backwards.
Thank you.
That makes sense.
610 on Blue Sky said, War Within is the first WoW expansion without a legendary. Can we expect anything in Midnight, or is the team taking time to reevaluate what place legendaries have in the modern game?
I think we always want to avoid things seeming formulaic, where it's like, okay, you can expect it's a new season, there's going to be a new legendary, this is how it's going to work. Legendaries should always remain special. They should feel like these are
If there's too many legendaries, they're no longer legendary. If they're a rare item and everybody has one, they're no longer a rare item. It's that straightforward.
items that have clear stories behind them and feel worthy of that special orange color. And yes, we're also looking always at issues with how they're awarded. We want to make sure they feel special, but also don't turn into something where it feels bad or grindy because they feel required if you want to be competitive. There's a fine
It's a difficult battle to try and figure out the fine line between everyone has one and only a few people have them, and yet still be fair about it. So I can see why they would hold off on it.
line to walk there. There aren't currently any planned for the first tier of Midnight, but as we face certain foes down the line, it may make sense for some of the items that they yield to have that orange color, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
I want to ask some lore questions. So, Asmira asked, will we be getting any more background information on story regarding Lyrath Windrunner? Sorry. Any of the other Windrunner?
I guess just talking back with the legendary items, or sort of rare items in general, why not make it more of a less of a pay to win kind of thing? So basically, instead of having such an impact on your furtherment in the game, just make a rare item that, whether that's an appearance that is like absolutely hidden appearance and only 1% of people get it, you know what I mean? You could be grinding for a long time. Like, that will drive people to want to get it, for sure. And they're still going to feel special, but they're not going to feel fooled that they don't have it or feel weak that they don't have it,
Runner family members, perhaps?
Absolutely. I don't want to talk too much about patches, but certainly in Midnight, as we go into the Spire, you will have the opportunity to really get a brother's view of his sisters and an opportunity to learn a lot more about what happened and what's happening in that place. And I mentioned before, we're going to see the sisters.
And
we're gonna see the sisters, aka we're gonna get Sylvanas back. We're gonna get her back, right?
Grody Toady on Blue Sky wants to ask about trolls. So, here come all the names. Where is Vol'jin's story in all of this? I'm hoping we find a way to weave Vol'jin, Talanji, Zul'jin, Rokan, Zul'jan, and Zul'jara into a cohesive story about troll unity or cooperation.
Well, right out of the gate in Midnight, you're not going to see that combination of trolls, but you will see a combination of some trolls as we continue into patches and move forward. We're very much focused on what's going on with the trolls as well as what.
The trolls are such a weird mix of trolls and orcs or something. Like, am I the only one who's seeing this? Like, I remember when trolls were like skinny and tall, and now they're buff. Like, they just broke up with their fucking girlfriend and they spend 24/7 in the gym.
What's going on with the Blood Elves. They have not always been on the best of terms for reasons, and there's definitely a story to be told about their relationship, and all of those folks come into that story.
Groxy on Blue Sky said, Midnight sees the Paladin forces of Azeroth fighting back the Void at the Sunwell. Can we hope to see more lore about the Tauren and Azeroth's sun god, Ansha? Eyes of the Earth Mother told us how he and Elune / Musha fought possibly the Void in ancient Azeroth.
Well, we are going to hang out with Desco a little bit in the Erator's Journey portion of our campaign at midnight, and I feel like we certainly are going to look at how the Tauren view their mythologies, perhaps later.
Perhaps later. So the answer to that is no. Tauren are still an afterthought. But hopefully after midnight.
In The Last Titan.
Okay, good. Let's talk about add-ons. The WoW creator Polka TV said, given the upcoming removal of many boss mod tools, how do you plan to preserve the intended difficulty of encounters once these tools are no longer available?
So yeah, this is a great question. For some extra context, I think folks are going to see in the next day or two, as some of the media interviews we've done the last day go out, that we are rolling out changes to the add-on API with the launch of Midnight. And so that is going to remove the ability for add-ons to read in real time combat state and combat information specifically. And one of the big reasons why we
Also, what's this with the chat? Bro, I'm loving that.
time combat state and combat information specifically. And one of the big reasons why we're doing this with the launch of a new expansion is so that we can really build all of our combat, our encounters around that expectation, around this new ecosystem. As we've been discussing over the course of the year, really the main goal with this shift is to create a level playing field where external tools are no longer felt to be required in order to engage in the content, at a competitive level. And also to shift some of the things that we are testing when it comes to difficulty, maybe away from Twitch reactions and how quickly you can run to the circle or diamond marker that your add-on told you to run to, and rather to more of the collaborative coordination that have traditionally marked cooperative PvE in WoW. But the goal is to keep difficulty largely the same in terms of how many pulls it takes to down a boss for your guild, whether you are aiming for ahead of the curve and defeating heroic, or whether you're pushing into mythic or whatever else. Overall, it should take you about the same amount of time to accomplish what you're used to accomplishing.
So he's basically saying the changes they're making are to take out outer add-ons to the game, and swap them out for in-house add-ons built into the game, but the game's still going to be just as, like, it's not going to make your gaming, your raiding, your dungeon clear or whatever easier. It'll just replace the add-ons you have from other sources.
That difficulty may come in slightly different places. Without add-ons to solve mechanics for you in real time, it may well be the case that we just need to give you a couple more seconds to get into place, or that there should be one fewer add to interrupt, or what have you. We are going to be rolling out, we're actually going to be launching Alpha with a raid boss available for testing early on. We have a ton of native improvements to the UI, like boss timers, boss alerts, so you can see a timeline of upcoming boss abilities, nameplate improvements, cooldown manager improvements, and more, to, again, kind of create a unified experience that's baked into the UI. But the goal at the end of the day is for difficulty to remain where it was, and we will be making tuning changes in alpha and beta, as well as, of course, once these encounters are live, to make sure that things are landing in the right place and players still feel well equipped to overcome the challenges in front of them.
Following that, Sped Bros on Reddit asked, what is your plan for upkeep and development of these now built-in add-ons?
So I think the functionality that we're pulling into the base UI is something that, as always, we're going to be evolving in response to player feedback. Again, part of why we're very excited to get people having a look at these right at the start of alpha is so that we have the entirety of the alpha and beta cycle to iterate on them before Midnight launches. And then, of course, as always, even after the game is live, we're going to continue to add functionality based on the player requests and the feedback that we're receiving.
Ossicrond on the WoW forums said, sculpting your UI over the years is almost like working on a classic car. Fine-tuning with different fonts, color palettes, and even different types of glow alerts. What is the depth of the available customization, and are there plans to expand it in the future?
So there's a couple of facets to this question. First off, couldn't agree more that I think UI customization and using add-ons to tailor the aesthetic of a UI, how information is presented and where it's presented, I think are one of the hallmarks of the WoW experience and really one of the strengths of the game for going on 21 years now. There are no plans to eliminate or remove that. The approach we've taken in changing the way the add-on API works really is just focused on access to that real-time information. There'll be details coming out very soon from our UI engineering team on exactly how this works, but whereas in the past when we have restricted aspects of what add-ons can do, we tend to just kind of wall off sections of our UI and say add-ons can't touch this at all. But when it comes to things like nameplates or unit frames and the like, that would have been an unacceptable approach here because that aesthetic customization is so essential. So there's a brand new system that's been created where essentially pieces of information about what's going on in combat are put in the black box. And Add-ons can paint that box pink or yellow or green or make it bigger or smaller, but what they can't do is know exactly what's inside the box and use that to drive logic. In addition to that, the new UI functionality that we're
Let's just
adding,
see how
whether it's
that
improved nameplates or whatever, have extensive customizations in terms of size, shape, location, aesthetic, all of the edit mode functionality, and more. But we have no intent of pulling back in any way from the aesthetic customization that add-ons have always offered.
Cutting to the chase, Felfer on the WoW forums asked, does this mean that existing add-ons like Deadly Boss Mods, Plater, or Details are going to break?
They will change significantly. I think certainly, day one, if you're logging into alpha and you try to enable them, I do not believe they will work due to changes in the API, but that's standard for any new expansion release. We are inviting the authors of a vast range of add-ons into our first week of alpha, so that's going to be coming up in just the next few days, to get their hands on these changes, to give us feedback about how we can better support their ongoing.
I love that they're working with people who actually make add-ons and see if they can better their own. Like they're not just kicking them out of their jobs. You know what I mean? Like they're actually working with them to make the game better and asking for feedback. And it's the way it works.
Development. But yes, when it comes to the specific ability to read and process combat information and use that to drive logic, that is going to be changing, and that will affect those add-ons.
Okay, give me one more. This comes from Herrix on the WoW forums. Herrix said, what are the plans regarding improvements to the default raid frames? In the effort to reduce the need for add-ons, raid frames are a major pain point for healers, where the default Blizzard raid frames are basically unusable without at least some external modification.
That's a good question.
So yeah, we also have improvements coming to raid frames, definitely with healers in mind. If you're, let's say, a Resto Druid who wants to be able to see all of your HOTS on a target, that's something that we agree is very important and needs to be baked into the default functionality. Same with encounter designers calling out major buffs and debuffs and things that you need to know in an encounter, whether you're a healer or just a raid leader wanting to keep tabs on the state of the encounter that way. And of course, as mentioned earlier, add-ons will still be able to customize the look and the feel and the size and the overall presentation of raid frames. There just won't be certain functionality that is driving logic based on whether you happen to have a certain debuff or not. But all the rest should still be available.
E. Chow on Blue Sky has a couple of questions. Given the connection to the Army of Light, the Sunwell and Blood Elves in general being their main rival in the Burning Crusade, will we see Draenei play any sort of role? Also, will Quel'Thalas be, with Quel'Thalas being part of the main world now, will there be any updates to Forsaken Lands?
So the Draenei, obviously will be part of the fight, part of the battle that we're waging against the Void. But this chapter is focused on the Blood Elves and the Blood Elves struggle with some trolls, and we're gonna really be leaning in there more than we are with the Draenei. Opportunities, will come up for the Draenei to have their moment in the light, as it were.
Yeah, and as it goes for like changes to Forsaken Lands, well, there's some minor changes as we've added Quel'Thalas and Zul'Aman into the main body of the Eastern Kingdoms to connect them in. So there's a tunnel in the Forsaken Lands that does connect it in. We are going to see some Forsaken characters as well. We're actually going to be working with a little bit of a deep cut, but Alonsis Fowl, the Archpriest, is going to be a character who appears and has a couple interesting interactions and chats with Eretor and Liadrin and others. So we're going to continue to build out Forsaken story as we continue.
Yeah, I think looking at how this is playing out and continue to, I think we're very excited by some of the reception we've heard from Gamescom onwards about the changes to Silvermoon, Eversong, and more. Honestly, there was a bit of anxiety internally about the idea of revisiting an old location as for one of our zones, where there's some,
That location has been abandoned ever since. Like, how many of us have gone back? Nobody.
Players would view that as like somehow lesser than coming up with a brand new place. But I think as people see this full splendor of Silvermoon, get a chance to revisit Eversong and what it's become all these years later, I think the excitement around that really excites us too, because we'd love to be able to tell more news stories in some of the iconic locations that resonate throughout everyone's fandom of Warcraft and what Azeroth is about. And so that will mean updating those locations, and I think that's something that we're excited to do more of as we look forward. Of course, the Last Titan will see us going back to Northrend, so that'll be a story for another day.
Well, I think
we're going back to Northrend. We're going back to Northrend. Did he just tell us that? Is that maybe the last expansion? Oh, that's hype.
For sure discovered that we can tell different stories when we go to old places and see how characters have changed, see how the spaces have changed. It's been a really cool opportunity to do that in Midnight.
Let's shift to some class talk. Faxia on Reddit asked, are you planning on adding any new specs that can tank or heal for existing classes?
Not right now in Midnight. I think Devourer, Demon Hunter, and that new range DPS spec for them is our focus right now. But I think we've seen, whether it's this or whether it's augmentation, there's excitement around the idea of established classes getting new specs. And so that is something I think we are likely to explore as we look to the future.
Zerotics on Reddit asked, throughout the War Within, some classes and specs received visual updates, and as a monk player, the update to Vivify was very appreciated. Are there any other classes or specs that can be revealed to be getting updated visuals in Midnight?
Yeah, there's a couple really cool Apex talents. So Apex talents are the new talents you'll be able to learn at the bottom of your spec tree, and a lot of these have some fantastic visuals. Ones that jump out to me are the augmentation, where you summon a bronze dragon version of yourself from the future to fight alongside you for a little bit. The Frost Mage one as well. You summon a Hand of Frost that chases down your target and attack them. And so these are some of the new abilities that are going to get some new custom visuals. As far as like looking back at older visuals, as was the case with Vivify, this is something that we tend to do as we continue to build smaller patches. Most of our effort for Midnight was building all the new stuff, but then as we continue building out the game, we look to the future. This is where we look back at, as we did with Vivify, find abilities where we can raise the floor and say, like, okay, this one has aged not as gracefully as the rest of our visuals, and we can bring it up to par with the rest.
Following.
Just don't make them super complicated or too messy. Like, if things are too shiny, it gets complicated. It hurts my brain.
That, we found a question from Nihenna on the German forums, and Nihenna asked, will the void/light topic be picked up in any additional class specs in the future? For example, Sunwell effects for a Holy Paladin, or perhaps void powers for a Warlock.
I don't know about Void Warlocks quite yet, but we do have a existing Void themed spec, the Shadow Priest, my beloved Shadow Priest, which has a new ability, Tentacle Slam, which replaces Shadow Crash, and it is a giant voidy tentacle that slams down in a line in front of you and has a similar AoE component, but a lot more of a classic voidy Shadow Priest idea to it. We also have on one of our Apex talents, the Discipline Priest has Void Shield, which replaces your Powered Shield with a Void-themed shield. So there are places where the Void and Light are leaking into our class design.
Going back to the support roles, Neo Saro on the EU Spanish forums asked, can we expect anything new regarding the support role in Midnight? Will it be expanded to other classes? Is it considered that it maybe didn't work as expected for augmentation, and perhaps that just becomes a normal damage or healer?
So we're not planning on currently expanding into other classes, but we're also not planning on changing augmentation to just fit into the existing niches. I think there's a lot of excitement around the idea of support. I think we've seen players embrace that fantasy. I think we are still iterating on evolving that specialization and getting to a place where we can find a happy medium, where it can kind of realize that fantasy and be effective as someone who bolsters the strength of your allies without also becoming so effective that it feels required in groups and kind of limits composition diversity.
Why not, though? Why not, though? Why does everyone have to do everything? You know what I mean? Why can't we just have characters or specs or classes that just everybody wants them in the fucking raid? Why can't we just have classes where everybody just wants them like we used to? Like, yeah, everybody wanted a hunter for the buff. Like, that was cool. You'd get invited. Like, everybody would have something cool, yeah, but not everybody has everything.
I think if we're able to achieve that, hopefully when we're able to achieve that, I do think we would like to look to what other ideas might apply a different fantasy to executing that concept.
I want to switch to the topic of delves. The WoW content creator True Villain Manny said, with delves integrated into the story, will there be certain scenarios that are locked in as we level? And will there be additional story in those alternative scenarios with delve?
As in, will you have to do delves to catch up on side stories? Or are they only going to use, like, are they going to be part of the story where you are questing and you're going to have to do the delve to see the next part of the story? I would hate that. Like, I would hate that.
Yeah, as we move through the campaign in Midnight, we will be entering delves with specific goals in mind, and that particular variant of the story will have the objectives that we need to accomplish as we go through them. As always, our delves will have multiple variants to play through with different stories occurring. So yes, we will continue to use delves in this way, and look for opportunities to continue to build quest content that enters delves.
So let's go inside. Varteris on the WoW forums said, will delves have even greater variety than in the War Within? Maybe a randomized puzzle to solve, a race, a whole new set of abilities?
Yeah, there's a couple ways that delves are changing. We have a new follower, Valera Sanguinar is going to come along, and she's going to mix things up. She's takes delves a little bit more seriously than Bran does, and a lot more snabbily as well. We also have some outdoor delves that are going to take place in outdoor spaces, and so this will just change up not only the vibe of the space, but your ability to move around, because you'll be able to use your ground mounts to get around.
Nice.
We're also just taking a look at the mechanics that we're using in delves in Midnight. So you can announce now that Midnight does not have any underwater delves. It also does not have any delves with the mechanic where you have to, say, pick up a candle or a totem and throw it ahead and continue doing that on a continued basis. Folks, let us know how they felt about those, and we're not moving forward with those designs in Midnight.
So
That's great. They took the feedback and they actually worked with it. Nice.
Relentless on the EU Spanish forums asked a version of a question we got a lot. And Ian, what's stopping the World of Warcraft development team from doing a world revamp? Could we get a world revamp?
That's a lot of work.
I mean, I think, the idea of revamping everything at once is a terrifying one, frankly. But I think, as touched on earlier, we definitely want to tell new stories in iconic locations. And in doing that, we would certainly do much more than just do a fresh coat of paint on the area. We would really reimagine it and bring it into the present day, as we have with Eversong. Our current focus is, of course, on the story that we're telling for the rest of the World Soul Saga that we'll touch on.
I'm a little afraid that you'll never be able to return back to the old-fashioned way. But if they're going to keep, both worlds, that would be a W.
Some familiar locations, but down the line, I think the lessons we are learning and the experiences we're having, revisiting some locations, open the door to doing a lot more of it.
Saw a very upvoted question from Solera, a French WoW player on X. Solera asked, without giving away spoilers, very important,
Okay.
does Midnight introduce any completely new elven tribes or expand on lesser known ones? Maybe the Kelderai?
Yeah, I see.
Without spoilers.
Without spoilers.
That's a tough constraint.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's right.
I don't think it's spoilery to say we're going to be learning a lot about the elves and the elves' relationships with one another, and that would include Kelderai.
Thank you. And Zoris on the EU Spanish forums asked, with the Devourer specialization, all Demon Hunter abilities will use void effects and icons, even those shared by all three specializations. Has there been any consideration of extending this aesthetic customization to other classes?
So I think philosophically and narratively, what a Void Demon Hunter represents, what a Devourer Demon Hunter represents, is one who, rather than harnessing and channeling Fel energy, is channeling Void energy to turn it against those who originally wielded it. And so that is going to transform a wide range of their abilities. On the other hand, when we look at, let's say, a Fire Mage or a Frost Mage, they're not forsaking the arcane when they become a Fire Mage. And so Blink is still an arcane spell, and Counterspell is still an arcane spell, and so forth. And so I think when we look at other classes, we generally like to look at that broad base of multiple areas of focus. And just because you specialize in one thing doesn't mean that that transforms all of the others. That said, touching on some earlier questions when it comes to glyph spell customizations and other things that players may want to customize the look and feel of their abilities, there's always an opportunity there.
Another highly upvoted question all over the place. I'll take the version of this question from Navarel on the EU German forums. Would you consider replacing the ready-made group in follower dungeons with characters from the player's warband?
Oh, that would be awful. I would have to think about all the T-Mox they would have to be wearing. I feel like that would be way too heavy on the game because they'd have to update it every time you change something.
Definitely something we are considering. Not something we're going to be able to deliver for Midnight, but ever since the introduction of both warbands and follower dungeons, this idea, this request has popped up. It's something that we're excited about internally as well. There's some technical hurdles to kind of pull that information down in real time and make it work. But it's something we do want to deliver down the line.
Ian's not lying about technical hurdles. There were multiple technical hurdles in the way. We're actually jumping over one of them with Training Grounds, where we're changing the way that some of those game-controlled characters or bots are built to be building Training Grounds in this way gets us one hurdle closer to being able to do what you're asking for.
There are so many people on this development team that I would call technical hurdlers. Engineers, that's just what they do. They jump over.
It's such a W that Blizzard is listening and actually actively changing things and taking things away immediately, and but it's sad that I have to take such a big fall for this to happen, but sure, look, we're here now.
For hurdles. Maria, Silo on the WoW forums asked, will there be new mini-game type quests in Midnight?
Yes, there will be. We actually have a new mechanic that was created for Zulaman specifically, where you will do some, underwater stuff. But it's quite fun. It's the Amani Abyss style. You're gonna be going fish and troll style.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a revelation. I like that. While we're revealing things, Musselton on the WoW forums asked, I'm extremely excited for the Heronir. Can you share more information on their druid forms?
Well, conveniently, if you watched the deep dive, you saw a flash of those. Fundamentally, they all have quills to throw back to sort of the Heronir, but the tank form is a pangolin bear with sort of bat-like ears.
They all sort of got those ears.
Yeah, they got
right?
the ears and the quills. And we have a wolverine for our feral spec. We have an owl-like, quilled owl-like sort of boomkin.
I hate the forms. I really do. There's only one or two of those forms that actually look cool. Like, I don't know. Not my cup of tea, honestly. As a druid especially, I think it's fairly disappointing to what we're getting. I don't think they look cool.
But best of all has got to be the swimming form, the swimming travel form, which is an axolotl.
Axolotl.
With quills.
We're all going to learn how to say axolotl.
Yeah, I probably said it wrong, but yeah.
No, I think you got it right. I think you did.
Okay, cool.
The reveal of the Heronir led to a very common question. And a version of that question that I want to ask you came from Racktoner on Reddit. Can you explain the decision-making process for which races to make playable races? A lot of this comes down to narrative. There's no secret that we started talking to the Heronir in the War Within, and this was not a coincidence either. We wanted to build a familiarity with Orwena, with her crew, so you'd understand who these characters are when they do eventually become playable characters, as we've added them in Midnight. And of course, Midnight is part of a 3-chapter saga. We're in the middle chapter now. The Heronir are going to be a big, important part of the story, and this is why.
But who told them that, like, people want to play them? You know what I mean? Like, who gave this feedback in? I'd love to know. I just think we're getting a lot of fluffy allied races, and it's not too exciting, in my opinion.
We chose to fold them in.
I feel bad often being the bearer of bad news in these conversations, but I know that it's not lost on us that there are widespread requests from players who would love to be a Sethrak or an Ethereal or the like. And part of the question there is, as Paul said, narratively, like, does it make sense for this faction to really join the Alliance and Horde if there's, if they're cosmic, extraplanar, or more neutral by nature? But the reality of it is also, from a production perspective, one of the things we grapple with is that adding a brand new race to World of Warcraft is one of the most development-intensive things we can do, not just in one-time time commitment, but also in the long-term carrying cost for every set of armor we ever make for years and years to follow. And it's something that we have to weigh very, very heavily when we do. Building a race that uses or shares an existing rig, an existing skeleton, if it's an elven race or the like, makes that more straightforward. Again, that's not to say we're never going to add very novel or meaningfully different races down the line, but it's a very high bar for us to clear when we look at how much ultimately it's going to mean that we have to do less of in other places forever in order to support this additional race alongside the others.
I mean, I can totally understand the grind, but at the end of the day, you are making a fantasy game. You can do whatever you want. I know it takes a lot of work, but in this day and age, with the state of World of Warcraft, I feel like you can make those races. You can come up with a random race, and people are still gonna love it because it's gonna be something new and it's gonna be something cool. Like, because it was cool race just from somewhere. Like, it's gonna. I'd say people play regardless. It'll be more interesting and it'll be quite unique.
Said to you before, I want Saberon. I will wait. I will be patient. Please give me Saberon. So, Massive Bear on the WoW forums asked, will Heronir be unlockable in the 3 days of early access? I remember Earthen were not.
No, not during the first 3 days. So during that early access, we want to make sure that we're letting players who are in that early access be able to play through the campaign. And
I mean, come on, man. Like, I want to. Whenever I play a class or a character or a faction, like, when I'm playing, I want to look at it and I'd be like, that looks cool. That looks badass. That looks sick. That looks hot. When I look at either of these two, that's not hot. Like, that's not cool. They do not look strong or it's just not doing anything for me. Like, every time I make a character, I'm going to make a character I like to look at. I don't like to look at these. whatsoever. And maybe I'm the only one, right? Maybe I'm just being nitpicky, but imagine this was the highlight of the expansion. I would be real pissed. I would be real upset because it's nowhere up to the par. Like, nowhere up to the par.
Understand, you know, what's going on, but not getting any meaningful jumps ahead of anyone else who does not have that early access.
Meredith on the WoW forums asked, how is Blizzard progressing in the war against toxicity in terms of the entire game?
Interesting.
Yeah, and this is something that's a huge focus for us, and really, there's many facets to the question and the discussion. I think when people say toxicity, there's a few different meanings, perhaps, or things that they're referring to. Some of it is just the overt, hostile, harmful, antagonistic interactions that may occur online between players. We're always continuing to shore up our reporting tools, improve real-time monitoring, and get to a place where people who are disrupting our game world can be punished and ultimately removed from it if they continue to do that. On the other hand, though, I think sometimes when people talk about a community or a portion of the game feeling toxic, that can arise from just mismatched expectations. Like, if I'm listing a group and I'm trying to run a raid, and I have done that raid 12 times, and I have been through groups that have wiped and learned the encounters, it's reasonable for me as a leader of a pug to only want players who have a certain level of experience, who have also been through those learning wipes and can succeed quickly. And so someone who is looking to learn may feel like, oh, this is very unwelcoming, this is kind of toxic, why am I not welcome here? And ultimately, that's an issue of aligning expectations. And I think there's a lot more that we can do on the pro side.
But at the same time, that was kind of soft because you can do raid with followers. I know that you can only do, or from my experience, you could only do certain bosses, maybe. Obviously not the full clear, but at the end of the day, you can get some bosses and you can get in through it, or find somebody who is okay with trying to clear the raids. It will still be difficult because at the end of the day, it is down to the leader of the raid to whether they are bothered to explain everything to you again or not. And like, that's just a personal choice. That's just somebody making that decision for everyone, and that's fair. That's up to them. So I don't think that's something that Blizzard can or should change necessarily. I don't think it has anything to do with that, but maybe implement something to allow for new raid players to experience raiding and kind of get a sense of it, like you do have with the followers and follower raids and stuff.
Social side of things to help people find like-minded players and like-minded groups. There's nothing wrong with wanting to complete something quickly and efficiently. There's also very certainly nothing.
I understand that raids are built for multiple people, and that's the whole point of a raid, is you are part of a raid group to clear a boss. But I myself, I would love to be able to clear a raid by myself, and followers, I don't even care. I want to experience the raid, not necessarily being part of a group. I don't care for being part of a group. I would be more enticed to clear the raid by myself and have the follower numbers or whatever if necessary, or scale it down to just literally, like, even if you give me no rewards for it, because I don't particularly care about the rewards. I could care about the team logs or the mounts and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily care about getting a higher item level by raiding. So if I can clear the raid for storytelling or just clearing it for the achievements or for the fun, then I'll even do it by myself. Like, I don't care for being in a raid. And I understand that's what looking for LFRs are for raids, where it's like you join people, but when somebody doesn't know how to do it and they keep wiping, people are just going to keep leaving. So it's kind of a cycle. But like, if you could just clear the raids by yourself all the way through without waiting like an expansion behind, that would be cool.
Nothing wrong with wanting to learn and wanting a patient group. Now, if you mix those two groups, there are going to be some conflicts that emerge naturally because of different goals and expectations. So I think a lot of what we're focused on right now is also how we can help players better connect with like-minded individuals so that they can have satisfying experiences where everyone is on the same page, working towards the same goals.
Thank you. I want to rip through some more housing questions. We've got several. Will we get to see our alts walking about, or maybe sitting in a chair in our house?
Yeah, this is, we're looking at a lot of the same technical hurdles we talked about earlier, not only with being able to show players and other players in game, but also the pathing issues that Ian mentioned when it comes to being able to have your pets moving around and mounts moving around and whatnot. So not planned yet, but something we do talk about as a potential for the future. And I'll take this moment to say that like housing is one of those features which is really exciting for us because there are so many cool ways for it to grow. As we've built Midnight and we're sharing housing for the first time, we're going to be looking to you to tell us, what do you want? Is it that we want to see our house? Do we want more features? Do we want more decor? Do we want more ways that I can style it?
Focus on achievements in the decor. Don't start adding in self-crafting or anything to do with self-improvement just keep that completely out of it, because it's going to end up just being World of the Draenor Heart thing. Just keep this cool and somewhere to hang out and put your trophies into and just expressing yourself. This is that simple.
Interior, exterior of my house. So let us know as you continue playing.
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, with a feature the size of housing, this is something we've been working on for a very long time to really deliver what players have been expecting and what they deserve. But there comes a point when we're developing, especially a social feature, where we're almost hesitant to take it too far until we can actually share it with the community and understand what people are into, what they're maybe not into so much, what they want more of, what they don't need more of, to make sure that we're really putting our time and our resources in the places that are going to maximize that value for players. And so we're so excited to see people jump in the months ahead in alpha and beta, of course, and then beginning this December on the live.
Just do not lock any type of rewards behind owning a house or anything like that. Like if you're not part of a private neighborhood, or if you just have a house by yourself, like don't lock certain events under or behind having a party for something. So if you're having a, I don't know, fishing event or something, and you can only start the event if 5 people attended, like that's going to be awful for anyone playing solo, anyone like myself, because I won't be able to do that. And this is why I hated a lot of content in the Shadowlands and the Maw, for example, because you were not able to solo certain things or spawn certain rares if you didn't have enough people for it, and that was just absolute torture. So if you don't force me to play with other players, and I'll be able to do it without I don't need to achieve a power level up doing this, even if it's the same T-Monks or anything like that, but as long as I can do it by myself, having the option of doing it with other people, like that's a W. Just don't lock it behind doors of having to need a group to do this, because that's just going to be awful.
Servers and see where it goes from there.
So here's a very specific question from Alastril on the WoW forums. For housing and professions, it was stated that professions through all expansions will be able to craft housing items. Will we be able to use this as a skill catch-up for the past expansions? For example, could a leather worker start at Wrath leatherworking skill 1 and craft Wrath-themed housing items to get all the way to level 37?
Basically, we get skill XP when we craft items for the house that we can then sell on auction house. I wonder, are you going to be able to drop those scripts from previous raid bosses? Like I said, will I have to rerun all the raids and kill bosses just so I can try drop a specific customization script to be able to make these things? And then how is that going to work? Is it all, like, if everybody does woodwork, is that all going to involve everyone having the same scripts? Or like, since I'm alchemy, will I be creating some customizations with vials and stuff? Or is it all just going to be that one specific thing where everybody's going to do the same thing?
25.
I mean, these will give skill ups for sure. Yeah. I don't know how many of them will be available at level 1, for example. They may be tuned based on how elaborate the piece of decor is, but in general, yeah, once you get the level that you're able to build these things, then you continue to use.
Are we going to have to use new items, like new materials, or are they going to integrate the old, the old gems or specific materials from prior? Because if they're making the scripts based on which map you're on, then I would assume you have to use the materials from that expansion, which I think would be better, because you're going to integrate the previous expansions and all the materials and all the items that are sitting in my damn bank for whatever reason. So finally, all those years of collecting all this crap is going to come to some use.
Use them to level up.
So many very specific requests. I want to just give you this one. It comes from Spera on the WoW forums. Is it possible to add a functional bookshelf to player housing that could store and display collected in-game books? I have a lot of those.
Okay, this is what I'm talking about. That once you share housing with the world, then 1,000 cool ideas come out, and so we start gathering up all these cool ideas and say, what can we do next? I can confirm there will be bookshelves. Whether those bookshelves will be functional, no, not at least to start. But this is a really cool idea for a collection that we're gonna take back to the team.
And a couple more. Ian, Devanir on Reddit wrote, "What is the minimum player limit for a private or guild neighborhood? What happens if you make a private neighborhood with the minimum amount of people and then some of them go away?"
So this is something that's still a bit in flux. I think our current thinking is that just like signing a guild charter, you'll need 10 players to charter a private neighborhood. And that's for a couple of reasons. Part of it is, in order for neighborhood systems endeavors to really function optimally, there's a certain number of players that are going to be expected to really drive the system. But also a piece of it is just server performance. Using an
That makes me fear that all the events I was talking about are going to be locked away behind numbers.
Extreme example, if literally every single player online had their own personal neighborhoods, that would be potentially millions of simultaneous entire districts that need to get spun up, trying to make sure the servers don't melt here. And so striking a balance between what's going to be a good social experience, but also recognizing that players have friend groups of various sizes and you want to be as flexible as possible. I think if we're able to lower that number from where we're starting, it's something we would aim to do as we see how the tech side of it unfolds.
So basically, for anyone who doesn't play with other people like myself, you're better off creating a guild name and just kicking everyone out, and creating your own guild neighborhood and living by yourself. Basically, that's what I'm gathering from it.
I saw an upvoted question on Reddit from a player named Backstabbeth, and this is a question I have myself.
Fairly a trustworthy fellow.
Very much. Will there be a list of collections and their sources for housing materials before housing goes live so that we can begin to start hunting for those items,
Good question.
maybe reputation, achievement requirements? I'd love to know what I already have or what I'm close to having.
A ton of that is going to be visible in the alpha build coming up in just a day, but we'll have a blog summarizing it so you don't need to go trawling for the information, and that way everyone can get a head start on checking off those achievements that you may have missed.
Let's come back to a couple of fun questions before we go here. Bale Samel on the WoW forums asked, are we getting a capybara Loa? There are capybaras in the Yamani screenshots. The people yearn for a capybara Loa.
Well, conveniently, there is one. His name is Philo, the capybara Loa of children.
Interesting.
Oh, nice. And I hope he has a prominent headdress.
Absolutely, and a glorious necklace.
That's perfect. Loas should be very well outfitted, I think. Finnerfin on the WoW forums asked, could we see the return of class quest lines? Legion was great, and it was fun to have a unique experience questing on alts.
Yeah,
Very
class quest lines come up really often as something people are excited about. We certainly do want to look more at, expanding on classes. We had a lot of fun doing the Warlock one, for example, not too long ago. But most recently, the best way for you to play some class quest lines, if you never played them, has to do with our lore walking. Because where we had restrictions, for example, on the Xalatath story, previously, a lot of people didn't know anything about Xalatath and the knife. And by playing that lore walking, they had the opportunity to play that portion of the...
That catch-up system to the day is a huge W, but moving forward, can we have a solo quest line for our class? Like, just some cool quest line. It doesn't even have to be super driven in history, just something solo that only the class can do.
The priest quest line. So we're hoping that as we build more lore walking, you'll have that opportunity to see some of that, but this is certainly an area that the quest and narrative team would be thrilled to do more of.
Let's go forward.
Good. It's our last question. And
Alright.
I cobbled this together from versions of this question that I found everywhere. I want to give a shout out to some of the people that I borrowed this from. Aziriel, Simplejack, Martian, Zuburius on our forums, all asked versions of this. Ian, how will player power progression be updated in Midnight, especially regarding Valor Stones?
So yes, so the way the upgrade system has played out over the last couple of expansions, I think we're happy with the sort of granular incremental progression that complements that spiky randomness of loot drops. But there is, and we agree with player feedback that we've heard, potentially one too many moving pieces and a bit too much complexity in the current system. So I can announce that Valor Stones as a currency will be going away in Midnight. You're already needing to gather the crests that you need, and that should be sufficient. We're also looking to streamline the system a little bit and more clearly pair individual crest tiers with appropriate gear upgrade tracks so that there's potentially less confusion about what crest matches to what.
Anything further, Paul?
No, I think that's great. Yeah, yeah.
We're over here pumping fists.
Yes, absolutely.
Very excited.
Yeah, Rip Valor Stones.
Well,
And on that note,
that's our time. Thank you, Ian, Paul, Maria.
I mean, huge W on a lot of the content and a lot of the questions, a lot of the answers. The more they talked about housing, the more I got kind of worried now. But we'll see. Maybe they just didn't explain the question right, or it just wasn't in the question. But I'm excited to see the housing for sure. And as I said, I'm very worried that it will be focused on more social aspect than housing itself, and a lot of the features within the neighborhoods will be locked away behind numbers. Because I don't have any friends, okay? I play World of Warcraft by myself, and I want to be able to do all those things by myself. You know. Anyway, overall, huge W. Blizzard are finally listening, and we're getting the answers that we wanted. So the game is looking good. Let's do it. Let's play Midnight and be absolutely overwhelmed with the amount of content that we can do and the amount of achievements and collectibles and everything. So huge W. So congrats, I'm super excited for Midnight, but I don't know if there's going to be collector's edition. I'm going to have to do my research. Right. Good stuff. Huge W.